uh, start our first support meeting of 2020 for support services. Thank you all. Oh, here's Craig. Thank you for deciding to come in at the last minute. I guess I would have asked, I wished for a cup of coffee, and you would have came in with two then, eh? But thank you very much. So the first thing I'd like to do is start off, since we're running a little bit behind, is to call the meeting to the order, and also get a motion to approve the minutes for
December, was it?
December's meeting. Was it December, November?
Probably November.
November. We have Ben Driscoll on the first. Do I have a second? All right, so moved. Today's first order of business is going to be the IT department. Michael, but you're sitting here, you're already prepared, so I want to thank you. A little update on that. He's coming with a proposal here to buy some goods that he needs for his department to disperse throughout some other departments. So just a little update. There has been a capital improvement fund that was open a long time ago that this money will be pulled from. So it's all has been budgeted in previous years. So I'll let Mike please take over.
Okay. The first resolution I have listed is the resolution to be able to share the security awareness training that we just started with the towns and other municipalities that want it at our rate. We do that with the antivirus, and now we want to be able to do that with security training. Well, to train people with email safety, internet safety, and then it does phishing tests to make sure the training's working. It's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing to make people up to date. We've got great hardware, we've got great software, but the weakest spot is always the user and always will be because of the constant changes and threats. So we're going to be in good shape, and now we want to be able to extend that to the towns if they're interested.
I'll move that.
Do we have a motion in the first? Do I have a motion in the second? So moved. Any questions?
I'd just like to point out, I noticed that the Office of State Comptroller in all their reports is often looking at IT and security for what towns have in place or do not have in place, and this would be very helpful for our small towns to be able to stay prepared out of harm's way.
Yeah, that comes up in the audits, like what are you doing to help your people and train your people?
Also, with talking with Mike, like the antiviruses, there's a big difference in the price of what we get with, Julian Purchasing and how we can work the contracts. I think it's a good move that all the towns, get a hold of Mike that if they need this and even to look into it. I think it's a good move for savings across the board for everyone. So, thank you.
And my second resolution, just 106
Oh, excuse me. Yes. So I'll call a vote for the. Let's put it down as a for the proposal request to share security awareness training with other municipalities in Warren County.
Aye.
Aye.
So we have a first and a second. So move.
Oh.
Supervisor
So that
Shevler.
was-
Oh, you abstain? Oh, we have an abstention. Sorry. A little nervous. Slightly. All right, Mike.
The second resolution is to move money from the reserve fund to various departments for computer purchases we anticipated. There they are, they're listed, I guess. It's a lot of money, but yeah, we've been squirreling away for several years to get to this point.
I'll ask for a motion. Mr. Leggett on the first. Do I have a second? And Mr. Driscoll on the second. Just a little update. When I was sitting down talking with Mike, when he first started, he said he could count how many computers were in the county. And I guess now there's a program to keep track of how many computers are in the county. So in between all this, I think this was a good move that we saw the foresight coming that everybody thing was going to go technology someday, and it was going to be a big thing. So I'm glad we were on ahead of it with this capital fund that we set aside, and I think it's a great move that we do this in bits and parts here and there. So thank you. So I'll call the question. Approval or resolution to appropriate the funds from the Computer Reserve Fund.
Aye.
Aye.
That's so moved.
That's all I've got.
And nothing on discussion, so Mike, thanks very much for coming in and waiting for us. Sorry we're a little bit behind, I know how busy you are.
That's right.
Good.
Okay, second on the agenda is from Julie for our purchasing agenda, so I'll let her take over.
Okay, it hasn't been that long since I brought the policy for the last set of approvals, so we've had some changes just in the last couple months. Some of it's just housekeeping to cover areas that we needed to address. I've highlighted all the changes, so the first one is on page 5. We became members of another national cooperative, so I just addressed that or added that to the list.
Sourcewell?
No, Sourcewell was our first one.
No.
Yeah, NJPA changed to Sourcewell. And then
Okay.
we added the PEPPM, which is more of a technology-based national contract. The next change is on page 6, and that's just adding decimal places to the dollar amount for contracts that are required. We didn't have in there address, what happens if it's exactly $1,000. So that's now covered.
There's a penny difference there.
I know. The biggest change is on page 7, and this is not going to just apply to the county, but the towns will also have to be aware of this. Any New York State funding that you get, say from Department of State for a grant project, the minority and women-owned business requirements have been expanded so that if you're over certain dollar thresholds, you're going to have to give preference to the minority or women-owned businesses that submit. So if they're within 10% of the lowest bid, we're required to award to them. So if you do get funding, that's just something you need to be aware of because the state will be checking up on this stuff. For us, it's mostly within our planning department. All those, the First Wilderness grants, all of this falls under that.
Can we get a little more information on that? Sometimes it's not possible to get a response from women.
And if you don't, you can still submit for a waiver.
Okay.
They're reluctant to give those, but they are still an option. If you've proven, right, you've got to show that you've reached out to anybody on the minority and women-owned directory, which is what we consult at the county. We go to that for every project that we put out. So, you're welcome. And then there was only one other change. It's on page 16, and that's in emergency situations, we don't always have time to get a contract. So the county auditor requested that I put a stipulation in there that a contract wouldn't be required if deemed not necessary by the county administrator, the chairman of the board, and or the county attorney. Just so we're covered if that does happen within the policy.
Well, Julie, thank you on the first proposed request. So I'm going to be looking for a vote for the request for the resolution approving revisions to the Warren County purchasing policy.
I'll move it.
We have a first from Supervisor Leggett and a second from Supervisor Schepler. So I'll call the vote. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Business also has essentially hire a consultant that falls into either minority or woman.
Okay. Now, I don't know if everybody's familiar with our weights and measures department. I know we all drive by and we see that huge trailer he's got over there parked off to the side, but After sitting down with Herb and having a really great conversation with him, there's a lot in this department that I never thought of, and he's brought it to my attention. You know, math is a good part of it, but it's also sounds like the easiest part. So now I want everybody aware of, I believe today is Herb's retirement date. So, but he's brought up to my attention that he's really nervous as what's coming forward here. He's, you know, it's such a huge important part of our county and what we have to do. So I would like to thank him for his many years of service and retirement, but it sounds like we have someone that has piqued the interest of wanting to do this, and Herb, I believe, wants to work with him on a per diem. And what I'm going to do is hand this over to our administrator, because as always, he's on top of just about everything. So.
We have advertised the position of Weights and Measures Director. We got off to a bit of a late start. The initial plan was to reorganize Public Works Engineering Department a little bit and have somebody from that department pick up the duties of Weights and Measures Director. That person decided over the holidays that it wasn't something that they wanted to do, so we posted the position as quickly as we could. We got half dozen or so resumes and applications back that HR and Civil Service have gone through to determine who qualifies for the position and who doesn't. When we have a pile of applications of individuals who do meet the minimum qualifications, I did talk to Personnel Chair Simpson, and he's requested that me, the HR Director himself, the Budget Officer, and the Chair of the Support Services Committee conduct the first round of interviews, select some finalists, and then bring them to the committee for further consideration, so that we can select who will replace Herb in this role.
And a timeline?
ASAP.
So,
And you had 6 candidates. How many of those met the minimum qualifications?
I haven't gotten that
Okay, all right,
yet
thanks.
from HR. They're still going through that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Mr. Leggett?
so for the interim, Herb, congratulations on retirement. Are you leaving? That's the thing. Yeah.
I'm here to discuss the interim, basically. Well, before I forget it, the new emergency vehicle building that's in planning, I'd like a little corner for the 2 trailers. One of them.
That is a rather large trailer. I will have to go over with Mr. LaFleur if we have enough room over there.
As opposed to the tarp that's over it, it's a $32,000 or $33,000 vehicle. So it needs a little bit more.
Well, we'll have a decision in 10 years for you on that.
Yeah.
That's all right. I can just get another tarp. But in the interim, before we get a new Weights and Measures Director, I would like not to totally retire, but come back part-time. And I'm here today to see if we can expedite that process, as opposed to, I know that the official path is to come before this committee, and then goes to personnel, and then goes to the full board. Is there any way to temporarily give me a per diem part-time job so that the office won't sit idle? I assume it's going to take, at least a month to get a new director in.
Well, one of the things after sitting down and speaking to you, there's certain protocols that come to this job that you can learn, but as you really, unless it was a sales pitch trying to keep you on, which I don't think it was, there's a lot of hands-on learning techniques that come along with the experience of the years that you have in doing this, and which I think would be a great asset for the new person coming in. So I guess I would draw up, would that be a resolution we'd be looking for, is to
We have a per diem position now. I think Ken Flagg what's Ken's status at the moment?
Ken is just recovered from hip surgery. He hasn't been a whole lot of help in the last several months. He had spinal stenosis surgery and hip surgery, but his wife has some serious health problems right now, so he doesn't feel capable of coming back a few days a year. That position is, well, a mirror version of that position would be the one that I would
Yeah. I believe we have authorization in the compensation schedule for that position, Ken's position, to be paid at a certain hourly rate. So Ken, any time in the foreseeable future, is not quite ready to resume that, correct? I would suggest that if we want to do a similar arrangement with Herb, that we create a second per diem position at the appropriate hourly rate for Herb, and we'll use the savings from the first to fund the second, as well as the savings in the director's salary for the interim when we're going through the hiring process. It'll be budget neutral, and we'll have Herb on as long as he's willing to be on to help train the new department head.
until I, get run over in some gas station parking lot. I'm good.
Please don't do that.
Well, would that be a resolution we're looking for? So I'd like to make a resolution on what Mr. Moore, our administrator, just brought up, because it'd be a little hard for me to repeat that all that quickly.
I'll make that motion.
Ben Driscoll on the first, we have Susan Shepler on the second, thank you.
And is this with the $8,000 cap to it?
Is it
Pardon?
$8,000 cap to it?
That's a good question. Why don't we work that out in advance of personnel,
Okay, we'll work that out in adverse,
as well as the effective date?
okay, advanced personnel and the effect, all right, thank you. So, any questions? Yes?
Herb is finishing today, so personnel does not meet until next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Does Herb come to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
I wouldn't expect him to come to work full-time anyway, only to attend to something that's pressing. What are your thoughts on that, Herb?
I can do, as much as needed. The only restriction I have is I can't come back Monday due to retirement.
That's the retirement date, and you can't work on that date.
You'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yes, Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this isn't an unprecedented action that we've taken. We did something similar with Mrs. DiLorenzo when her predecessor
That's right.
was, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Hogan.
The resolution sounds like right now.
So with the resolution, which will go through personnel, it'll be a referral from this committee, is to amend the 2020 compensation schedule to create a per diem number 2 position, and at a not to exceed amount and an hourly rate that we will report at personnel, and an effective date that we'll report at personnel. I would think that the effective date, just to be safe, will be Tuesday. And authorization to fill that position. Thank you.
We all clear? Okay, no other questions? So I will call a vote for this resolution. The per diem for weights and measures.
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. So I believe, unless is there anybody else that would like to a privilege of the floor? Well, I'll look for adjournment then. And thank you all for sitting through my first big meeting. Whew.